Welcome to Tales, Tunes, and Tomfoolery starring Jerry Springer, along with Gene Galvin and me. I'm Megan Hills. We're recorded live in front of a brilliant studio audience at the Folk School Coffee Parlor in Ludlow, Kentucky.
And here he is, ladies and gentlemen, fresh off his commercial flight, Jerry Springer.
Man, I just feel sorry for you people. Oh, man, it is.
Welcome to the bottom, Jer. Welcome.
Oh, yeah. God, yeah, it's like when you're in a fast elevator or bungee jumping. I dropped to the bottom so quickly.
Real quick.
Oh, yeah.
What they're referring to is Jerry's, how do I put this? His revenue stream has changed.
Plummeted.
And so...
Wait, aren't we passing a hat here?
Yeah,
Jerry's
another hat.
Jerry's busking for this show.
busking. So Jerry's private plane is up on blocks or something.
And you sit on the runway forever and...
Other people.
It's a whole...
The rest of us are real excited to be on a commercial flight. I'm just happy to be going somewhere.
And then when you're sitting up in first class, all these people have to walk by you.
Yeah, that must be annoying.
Going, God, you look...
Can't they let them in the back?
Yeah, that's an idea.
Why?
This is why people don't like you.
Add that to the list.
By the way, Megan Hills is back. Megan is sometimes with us, sometimes not.
I
We're
know.
happy to have
Thank
Megan. And she's sometimes not with us because her day job is HR work and she's a trainer, and so she travels some. But we're very glad she's with us for a couple of weeks. And by the way, our band tonight is Wild Carrot.
Yeah.
We love Wild Carrot. So you'll be hearing from them in a minute. And Jerry also is going to talk about the ongoing drama of Brett Kavanaugh at the time of this recording. He faces 2 days from today. We're recording this on Tuesday, the 25th.
5th of September, my mom's
So,
birthday.
Happy birthday to your mom.
Happy
Yes.
birthday, Mom.
So 2 days
10
from
years
now,
younger
Brett
than me.
Kavanaugh will face accusers of sexual assault.
Yeah.
By the way, Jerry, you really stepped up. I bitched the other night at a podcast that I'm just like a regular person. I'm a retired educator at Cincinnati Public Schools. I live a normal life. I'm like an average American. Why the hell is it then am I picking up most of the checks when we're out somewhere and it comes time for the checks to be delivered? I've been grabbing most of them. So I bitched about it. Then you came to my home. I've never, ever been to any of your homes, of which there are 6. I've never been on your airplanes. And yet you came to my home. You sat at my table. You had a lovely dinner my wife prepared. Then, damn, the other night, you, your wife, my wife, and I went out after Rosh Hashanah.
Yes.
And you did do some repenting on that day. You confessed.
On Yom Kippur.
Yom Kippur,
they
pardon
kept
me, Yom Kippur.
But when I
Jewish
start to
holiday.
leave, the rabbi says, not so fast.
You get back here, sir. We're going to have a chat.
Why do I have
down.
to stay late?
Well, you are Jerry Springer.
So we broke the fast with them, Megan. We went to this damn restaurant. I know what my meal costs because I kept looking for the real high price item. I will tell you straight up, my meal costs $100.
What?
What did you
Oh,
eat?
it did. It was well.
No, he's lying.
You had
No.
a side
It wasn't
salad
even-
and a water.
Yeah, the salad was 100.
I am betting that meal. I bet that was. I'm going to guesstimate that cost you $600 for 4 people. Am I right?
Not including the tip.
Damn.
It's just a normal
Impressive.
Tuesday for Springer.
Impressive. I give it to you.
And we get to go to Skyline after this. Really appreciate that, Jerry.
I got that. Megan, I got that check. I got
what
that.
a hero.
$27.50.
I very smartly grab all the cheap checks that come around. Jerry Springer has done 5,000 and still running TV shows of the Jerry Springer
you
TV
kidding
show.
me?
5,000.
That is Are you like
That's why I had to stay late in Temple.
5,000 shows?
5,000.
How many of them do you remember?
Have you not seen it?
No.
Oh, yeah. I know what you're getting to. This is not a made-up story. So we're talking about that at dinner with our wives, and we're talking about 5,000 shows. Wow,
That's incredible.
because now
Congratulations.
they're all running.
In
You can see it
syndication.
twice a day. Check your local listings. No, but anyway, so they're running now, and it'll run for a whole bunch of years just because there's so many of them. But so we're talking, and so one of us says to Mickey, "Oh, you asked Mickey. You said
Jerry's wife, Mickey.
she's always, my show. It's just not up her alley."
Because she's a classy lady.
She is very classy lady.
She is.
Yep.
She thinks I sell insurance. I never told her I was. I never told her I did a talk show.
Didn't have the heart.
Gene, seriously, not joking around, asked her how we were talking about the show, and he says to Mickey, just this conversation, "How many of those shows have you seen?"
2?
And all of a sudden, "You're close. 3.
Yeah.
She went like this with her fingers. She went, "Well, I saw the first one."
Yeah.
She says, 3? How can you be married to me?
Jerry.
45 years, and we've done 5,000 shows, and she's seen 3?
Jerry, when we were
It was
together.
an outrage.
I
mean, where's the support?
When we worked
Yeah.
together on the radio show, if you remember, Mickey called on a break after watching one of your shows.
That was one of the 3.
And she said, "No wonder people don't like you."
What she called, and she said, in the middle of a show, she said, "Oh, my God." I said, "What are you talking about?" She says, "She took off her blouse."
Yeah.
I said, "What are you talking about?" She said, "I just saw your show. Is this what they're complaining about?" This was about 14 years in.
14, yeah. No wonder people don't like you, Jerry.
Add it to the list.
Yeah.
Well, I hadn't watched them before
But that
we
is
did our
that
show.
really is. I can't imagine whatever you do in life that your spouse wouldn't.
Really? You can't? Though?
Well, maybe I can. Yeah.
No, she really is. Mickey is a classy lady. She doesn't deserve all that.
You know,
He's right. Have you spoken to her lawyer? Apparently.
I've had a few businesses that I've started in Ludlow, and I've mentioned them before. Ludlow City Bus Company didn't last very long. A great vision.
While we're
but
talking about success in life,
Gene Galvin, ladies and gentlemen.
This one, Megan, is a guaranteed hit.
Let's hear it, Gene.
It's a company called Stand Strong.
Okay.
Catfish Williams, owner of Folk School Coffee Parlor, and I have bought a warehouse in Ludlow. This property in Ludlow, great place to come, and there's still some deals if you know where to look. So I found a warehouse. Stand Strong is an idea that came from me watching the media coverage of Hurricane Florence,
Sure.
which has happened on the East Coast. And the weather men and women wait for these hurricanes, and it's there that they cut their teeth and build their reputations by being in storms where they literally can hardly stand up. And they love that.
Uh-huh.
They can't wait for that. They're like Gore-Tex, everything, and they got their ball cap on backwards, and they lean into the wind. So Stand Strong is a company where, and my wife, Bonnie, who is a ballet teacher, is part of it because she is all about the core.
Yep.
And we're going to train weather men and weather women to be able to stand with
You need
we're
to
creating
stop.
like a wind tunnel.
Just stop all of it.
Big turbine fan.
no, when you started telling this story, I'm talking about, when there's a disaster hitting
Sure.
a community, like Boston Strong,
Yep,
or,
yep.
the community stands strong with the people that have suffered
We're
terribly.
using roads,
And you're-
rivers, and trails coming in with harnesses, and we're going to turn on big turbines.
We're gonna
Megan.
turn off your mic
So
is
we're
what we're
going to
gonna
teach you, and Bonnie's going to teach them ballet so that they can find their core.
Like the gentleman who had the teenagers walking behind him when he was leaning against the
right.
store.
Just walk by.
Doo-doo-doo.
yeah. So anyway, that company's called Stand Strong. So the website, it's up. You can go now,
Let us know how that goes.
standstrong.com. And come to Ludlow.
You've never
and
had
learn
your
how.
own plane, have you?
No.
Gene hasn't had his own car, Jerry.
I don't see this huge business success.
No, his business plans are not usually the most successful.
Hey, Brett Kavanaugh is the Republican nominee. They put him forward as a Supreme Court justice. And we're past the hearings. Now we're going to have a unique hearing on Thursday with one now, I think maybe the second accuser is coming, by the way. Do I have that right? I thought I caught that late today. What's your take on how that all is playing out, will play out, Jerry?
Well, the first thing I should say is that most people that listen to this podcast don't listen live. So by the time you hear this a week from now, it's possible that much of this has already been resolved one way or the other. But whichever way it's resolved, there's some things which come to mind. I think what we're dealing with here are competing values. On the one hand, there's the value that, well, just in case there's someone that doesn't know what's going on, Brett Kavanaugh has been nominated by the president to fill the vacancy of Kennedy on the Supreme Court. And it is generally believed, in fact, no one believes anything differently, to be honest, is that if he gets confirmed for the Supreme Court, that will give a solid 5-4 majority to the very conservative wing of the Supreme Court. And since they always vote in a block, which is another issue we'll deal with on another day, but cases such as Roe versus Wade, et cetera, and women's rights, and a whole bunch of civil rights issues that they could go by the wayside, they could be overturned with this new appointment. And so it's a very big issue. Now, he's all of a sudden, so they had the hearings, and it looked like, because the Republicans are in the majority, it looked like as long as they can hold on to all their 51 senators, that Kavanaugh would be confirmed. And as a result, the Supreme Court for the next 30 years or whatever, or for a long, long time, will be a right-wing court. And that is obviously scary to those of us of a more liberal bent, and certainly scary to women and various other groups. So after those hearings, it now comes out, or the last day of the hearing, it comes out that this woman is alleging that she was sexually assaulted by the nominee back when they were in high school. He was 17 at the time. She was 15, and she says that at some party he grabbed her, brought her into a room, locked the door with his buddy, and tried to rip her clothing off, and held her down and covered her mouth, and eventually she got away. But this obviously was a sexual assault, is what she's alleging. So here are the competing values on this issue. On the one hand, we believe in the presumption of innocence. We believe that because one person says you did something, you don't lock that person away. That in our system, you're innocent unless there is proof beyond a reasonable doubt of your guilt. And that's very much a part of the American system of justice. And it's a very fair system. So we don't start putting people away when there's just no evidence of it. Someone has a grudge against you. They don't like you. They just, and for years, it obviously was happening to African Americans, particularly in the South. People would just say, oh, he raped that white woman and let's lynch him. And so there's that value that we understand. Wait a second. Someone is saying, even though those of us may not want Kavanaugh on the court because we don't like his views and what the Supreme Court is going to be like with him on it, on the other, there is that view that, wait a second, if 35 years ago you are accused of doing something and there's no evidence of it, is that by itself a reason to throw him, deny him the court? That's the one value we think about. And everyone thinks about that. Regardless of where you stand, it's like, gee, I wish someone had some evidence of this. On the other side, we have the value that we're talking about the Supreme Court of the United States, a lifetime appointment. This is not just, what's at issue here is not anyone going to jail. It's not anyone losing their job. It's not anyone that's going to be fined. We're not taking away anyone's freedom. This is a case of, is this the kind of person you want to the highest judicial office in the land? to make judgments about the rest of the citizenry. We're entitled to have other standards for that. We don't need to prove beyond a reasonable doubt because we're not taking away this person's freedom or sending him to jail. We just want to know, we'd like someone sitting on the Supreme Court where there's no question, not just about his competence, about his intellectualism, but also about his values, about his character, about his honesty, things like that. And we're entitled to make judgments about that. So those are the two competing values. Now, what gets buried, both values get buried in the partisanship of this. This is a political issue, let's be honest. The Republicans would like to rush it through the nomination. Why? Because they still have the majority by one. And in November, it's possible, with this blue wave, it's possible the Republicans will lose the majority, and therefore they may not be able to get a right-wing conservative on the Supreme Court. So they're trying to rush this through. They don't want to delay. And the Democrats, to be honest, want to stall, because it's possible the Democrats will get the majority, and then they'll be able to sit in judgment about who the president nominates and get clearly someone who's more of a moderate, not as conservative, not as right-wing as Kavanaugh. So both parties have a political agenda here beyond the two values that I talked about. I also think there's a constitutional issue, because the Constitution says the United States Senate has to advise and consent on a presidential nominee for the Supreme Court, give their advice and consent. Well, I would argue, and maybe it's even worth a legal case if it gets to that the consent has to be substantive. What I mean by that is that in our system of laws, a child, for example, can't give his or her consent because we don't believe that a child has the judgment or the intelligence yet or whatever to make a reason, to give reasonable consent. So you can't say that when you grab a 14-year-old girl, well, she said I could. Okay, we laughed that out of court. Can't do that. Obviously, someone that has a mental disability can't give a consent. Do you notice when someone pleads guilty in a court of law, do you notice how the judge always says, in taking the guilty plea, the judge will say, before I accept your guilty plea, before I accept you consenting to pleading guilty, do you understand what's at stake here? Do you understand what the consequences are? Do you understand that you could go to prison, that you could give up freedom, that you could lose a lot of money? Do you understand what you're pleading guilty to? When you consent to, in a court of law, it has to be substantive. And I am saying, in these hearings, if the committee doesn't hear from the other witnesses, they don't get all the information that they need to make a substantive consent of him to the Supreme Court. So you can't have a hearing and say, we're not going to listen to any of this new evidence. We're not going to let the FBI investigate. Because then your consent doesn't mean anything. It's one thing to have the hearing, hear from all the witnesses, and then if you make the judgment that you're going to confirm him anyway, fine. But you heard all the evidence. If you don't hear all the evidence, your consent means nothing. So the Constitution has been violated. I'd like to see that as a possibility in terms of a challenge if he gets confirmed. One other thing. I think the Republicans are fooling themselves if they believe they can just ram this through. And the reason I'm saying that, if they ram him through without an investigation, and I'm not saying, I don't know if he did it. I mean, I really don't. And look, people do make up stories. So it's possible. So I'm not sitting in judgment. I don't know any of the evidence. But if the Republicans ram this through without an investigation and without hearing from the witnesses, then people are going to get so angry, let's be honest, that, virtually every woman in America is going to, and many, what I would argue, man with fair judgment, they're going to get so upset that the Democrats are going to win in November. They may win anyway. But they're clearly, if this goes through, wow, who's going to stay home and not vote on this one? So now the Democrats get control of Congress. And they're favored to get control of Congress anyway, not necessarily the Senate, but Congress. Well, did you think about that? If the Democrats, angry at what happened, get control of Congress, that means that every committee in Congress is chaired by a Democrat, which means that they can now hold investigations on anything they want. They will have an investigation, even if he's already on the Supreme Court. They will call for an investigation on everything that happened. They will have subpoena power. They will subpoena all the witnesses. They will call for the FBI or whatever organization to investigate. And then the evidence will all come out under oath. They can compel these witnesses, they subpoena them, and they compel them to tell the truth under threat of perjury. So all of a sudden, we are finally going to find out. And then, if he's innocent, innocent, end of story. But if they did find something, and he was lying under oath to get to be on the Supreme Court, the Dems will impeach him immediately. The Republicans would still have to vote him out, but they'd be in a hard position. If under the investigation it came out that these things did happen, it'd be pretty hard to keep him on the Supreme Court because every decision the court made then, would be tainted. So I think if I'm advising the Republicans, and obviously they're not asking me for advice, but if I were, I'd say it's in your interest, Republicans. Get it out of the way now. You will pay because believe me, if Kavanaugh withdraws, they'll nominate another conservative. So it's not like they're giving up their philosophy, but you might as well find a conservative that has no cloud. But if they push this through, they will pay. If Kavanaugh did something wrong, they will pay for it. They're crazy to push this through.
Thank you, Jerry. All right, ladies and gentlemen, as Jene spoke about at the top of our program this evening, we have Wild Carrot with us. And this is Pam and Spencer, and you guys are from the greater Cincinnati area, correct?
We are.
Excellent. So you started out on WNKU, is that correct?
Well, I started out playing music, and they started playing our music. And so as a way to give back, I started volunteering. And little by little, they kept giving me more responsibility. And later, before I knew it, I had a career in radio. And I was there for about 18 years before they went off the air. Exactly a year from this coming Friday.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Yep. Well, yeah, it's very sad. NKU it really did a great job of local radio, and they fantastic programming, and we do miss them in the area. We do still have WVXU, and we have some other local programming. But we're excited to have you here this evening. How did you two come to play together?
Well, we met through the Queen City Balladeers.
Okay.
I was booking the coffee house, and Pam showed up for an open mic. And that's where we first met. That was back in the early 90s. And she went away in the Peace Corps, but whenever she was around, we would get together and work on music. And so it's been a long relationship.
Long relationship. Very cool. Well, we're very excited to have you. The first song this evening is called The Power of a Pancake Breakfast.
Sounds delicious.
Where did this song come from?
Pam wrote this one. This came out of a driveway moment. Now, I imagine most of you know what that is. Certainly, if you're an NPR listener. Mm-hmm. If you're in your car and there's a story or a song and you have to see it through.
Yep.
You're in your driveway, but the story's not over, the song's not finished, and you need to stay for it. Well, there was a segment they used to do called This I Believe.
Uh-huh.
And
I remember This
Pam
I
was
Believe.
listening to one of those segments, and
I cried.
she cried. We have a rule that if she cries over a song, we have to learn it over a story, something like that. She has to write a song about it.
That's a good rule.
So that's what it gives me my free time. Yes.
A lot of irons in the fire with that one, yeah. So I took this woman's story on this, I believe, and basically set it to music. So the song tells the story, so we'll just play it. It's called The Power of a Pancake Breakfast, and if you want to sing along, watching online, it's I believe, pretty hard, in the power of a pancake breakfast. That's your part.
Should you pick up?
I'll help you.
Wildcat.
My name is Ivy. Mornings you'll find me behind the counter at this old diner, waiting on the regulars and 9-to-5ers. At first it was a job, just a little stepping stone, till I got my feet back on the ground. Never thought I'd turn a life around. Well, he was at a table in the back, nursing coffee black. How much for just one breakfast taco? I'd never served just one. I said, I don't know. His dirty clothes and empty eyes, they broke me up, so I lied. I messed up this order, gonna throw it away unless you want it. There's no charge today, no charge. Yeah, I believe. About 3 weeks when he came back to see me, and he said, I know what you did for me, honey. I want to pay you back. This time it's on me. I found a job and a place to stay. I almost ended it that day, but you gave me hope when I was down. Now I'm gonna spread that love around. You can make book on me. Yeah, he said, I believe. Thing. Orange juice, folks saying, how you doing? Well, peace spreads like butter on bread, like syrup sticky sweet poured by one person just like me. Chat, it's all E this and E that. Between nowhere and goodbye, we forget to look folks in the eye. But inside these steamy checkered walls, time don't matter much at all. Folks will talk for hours and tip me a quarter, looking for something that they can't short order. Yeah. Now I believe. Still find me behind the counter at this old diner, waiting on the regulars and the 9-to-5ers.
Wow. Woo! Bravo!
Awesome.
Man. Great.
Once again, ladies and gentlemen, that is Wild Carrot. Where can we find you online?
Oh, wildcarrot.net and Wild Carrot Music on all the, usual suspects
All the
out
usual
there.
suspects.
So yeah, we've got a brand new record out, and that song's on it. So
Very, very cool. What's the name of your record?
the new one's called Between the Darkness and the Light. Yep.
Excellent. All right. Wild Carrot, ladies and gentlemen. And if
Thank
you
you.
would please take us out on Down by the Riverside with one Mr. Jerry Springer jumping in there.
Oh yeah. I'm gonna lay down my heavy load down by the riverside, down by the riverside, down by the riverside. I'm gonna lay down my heavy load down by the riverside.
You've been listening to Tales, Tunes, and Tomfoolery, recorded live at the Folk School Coffee Parlor in Ludlow, Kentucky. Thanks to Patrick Kennedy for writing our opening song, and to you for listening. Check out our website at jerryspringer.com.
Ain't gonna study war no more. Ain't gonna study war no more. Ain't gonna study war no more. All right, Jerry.
Lay down my sword and shield down by the riverside, down by the riverside, down by the riverside. Gonna lay down my sword and shield down by the riverside, down by the riverside. I ain't gonna study war no more. Ain't gonna study war no more. Ain't gonna study